All right, number 3, we're going to solve the equation and then also express numbers as integers or simplified fractions. So we have 4 square roots of 2w plus 63. And then outside of that square root, we have a minus 4w. And that's set equal to 0. All right, so again, when we begin to solve, we want to isolate the square root term or the radical. We're going to do that by adding the 4w. Now, this constant in front, we can leave it or we can divide by 4. Since this number is divisible by 4, I will divide when I move it. However, if it was something that would result in a fraction, I would just leave it and go ahead and square it or raise it to whatever power is needed. So I'm going to start out by adding 4w to both sides. That's going to leave me with 4 square root of 2w plus 63, and it's going to be equal to 4w. Now I'm going to divide by 4, and that leaves me with the square root of 2w plus 63, and it's going to equal 4 divided by 4 is 1, so just w. And then from here, we're going to square both sides to get rid of that radical, and that will leave us with 2w plus 63 equals w squared. Now I'm going to move both of these terms to the right. We'll have a quadratic equation because we got a w squared, w, and then a constant term. I'm moving both over instead of moving the w here because when you're factoring, having that negative in front of the squared term causes issues. So I'm going to subtract the 2w, subtract 63, and so I'll have 0 equals w squared minus 2w. Both of these signs change when they move over, and then it'll be minus 63. All right, I'm going to say this factors. Factors of 63 that when I subtract give me 2. What comes to mind is 7 times 9. 7 times 9 will give us 63, and if I subtract them, I get a 2. That means since it's a negative 2, the 9 needs to be negative, the 7 needs to be positive. So I do know that this will factor. Split up the w, the 7 and the 9, and we already established the signs. This will be a positive, this will be a negative. Set both these terms equal to 0. Subtract 7, we get w equals a negative 7. Add 9, we get w equals a positive 9. So these would be our 2 solutions. Again, in this section, they want us to use the brackets. However, when we're doing these square root terms, it is very important that you plug these back in and check. I would even say from here, before we squared it, if you check at this step right here, square root 2w plus 63 equals w. Now, if I plug in a 9, I get 18 plus 6 gives me 24. And the square root of 24, we're checking to see if that equals 9, which doesn't seem like that's going to work. So again, that's plugging in 9 times 2. I need a 63. I don't know why I wrote 6. Sorry. That's not right. So 9 times 2 is 18. 18 and 63 give us 81. So we're looking at the square root of 81. Square root of 81 is equal to 9. That one checks out. When you do a negative 7, you get a negative 14. Negative 14. And we add the 63, so we'll subtract that, and that will give us square root of 49. And the square root of 49, we're going to say is positive 7. Now we should be considering plus or minus, but in the past I know the system only is considering the positive answer at the time. And so while both of these come out to be solutions, it may be the case that only negative 9 works, because when we take the square root, we're assuming that the answer is coming out positive, even though we know we could have started out with a negative times a negative or a positive times a positive. But in this case, when we take the square root and go backwards, we're not going to get a negative answer. So only 9 is probably going to be the answer. So we're going to put 9, and we're not going to use the negative 7.